Hey, welcome to the Autopsy of Unwise Choices. I'm your host, Pamela, and I am joined today by two awesome women, Miss Madeline Lyles and Miss Dana Taylor. They are first generation morticians and they are the owners of Afterlife Mortuary Services here in Memphis, Tennessee. We're thankful to have you ladies on the show with us today. And so, if you would, and Madeline, I know one of your nicknames is Mel the Mortician. So if you would introduce yourself, kind of share a little bit about you, and then Miss Dana, if you would share a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, thank you for having us on. And yes, I am Madeline Lyles, known in the profession and throughout the Mid South as Mel the Mortician. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, born and raised here. And I graduated from Hamilton High School in 2004. And it's always been my passion since I was 13 to be a mortician. So as soon as I graduated from high school, I went into college at Northwest in Mississippi for funeral services technology. And then afterwards, I wanted to create a 4-year degree just to advance or further the education of it. So I created a degree there for funeral services and management. And so I've worked now, it's been over 6 years that I've been a licensed mortician here in Tennessee, and I'm also licensed in Arkansas and Mississippi. Um, I've worked as a trade plumber for a good amount of years. That's kind of what led me into um, going into business to open my own funeral home with Dana as the years transpired.
All right, Miss Dana.
Okay, I am Dana Taylor. I am originally from Dallas, Texas, born and raised. I've been in Memphis for about 15 or 16 years now. And I came to Memphis to continue or to start my funeral service journey at Northwest Mississippi Community College. Before that, I graduated from Mississippi Valley State University with a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, and I was still interested in funeral service, so I came to Memphis, and that's where I eventually met Madeline while we were working at the forensic center. And I haven't been able to shake her ever since but 9. And so she me with the business idea, and it was crazy because I had always said that I didn't want to own a funeral home, or it was already working at once. I was like, oh no, I'll never do that. And like they say, because of course, here we are, been operators of our own funeral home and mortuary service. So it's definitely been an interesting journey so far. I'm just really excited to see where the future takes our business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I also want to highlight too that not only are you all first generation morticians, but you all are the first team of women in the city of Memphis, but also the state of Tennessee, that has established and opened and are operating a funeral home. And so I commend you on that, and I commend you on the dedication and the time that you've spent in the craft of mortuary science. It's not as easy as most people may think. And so the reason that I created the podcast was to really bring some insight to the things that we see, not only in the deaf industry, but as a tool to transform the decision making of our youth. For those that don't know, gun violence became the leading cause of death for children and teens in the United States of America in 2022. And especially here in our city, but also across the world, it's not slowing down. We're losing so many of our kids to violence, and it's heartbreaking because there's so much potential, that we've seen have to be buried week in and week out. And so we're going to jump into our first question that I have for you ladies. And I want you to share about the landscape of funeral service when you first came into the business, and what it looks like now as it pertains to the type of cases that we're seeing with our youth. If you could speak to that.
Okay. Well, I'll go first. When I came in, it was mostly like elderly individuals, and then you have more individuals who were just sick. They had like sickle cell or they had a cancer of some sort. You would have a few suicides, here and there, but not as many as now as well. That rate has also picked up, but not too many homicides like it is now. And so, like you said, like the statistic, it has definitely increased over the years, and now it's just ridiculous. Like you said, it's everyone has access to guns, and they don't really know how to use them or when to use them. You see now these youth and young adults are so short tempered, and I feel like they're heavily influenced from entertainment and rap music and what they see, in movies and stuff, and they're not able to decipher the reality from the entertainment, and it's kind of like they adopt that lifestyle and turn it into their reality. And then, like you said, here we are week in and week out because of the decisions they made, robbing and, stealing or just taking anger out, or animosity, handling animosity that way, with gun violence. It has picked up, and it's really sad to see it.
Dana?
Yes, I definitely. And when I first got in the business, hearing about a homicide was, something to talk about. Like it wasn't always happening, and so it was like, really a hot topic when it did happen. But over the years, it's become so typical and just expected to the point where it's not like it's desensitized us to some of the things that are happening because it's happening so much to where we just have almost gotten used to it, and that's really sad to see our honest truth around it on a regular basis. At this point, it's just really just sad, really disheartening to see the big turnaround in the type of cases that we have saw, because usually we were typically very lived out the portion of life into an older age. Like she said, died of disease or just possibly even old age, but a lot of times that's not the case. Like we're people's grandma. And then sometimes we are turning around burying the grand or the great grand not too long after. Like it's not going in what we would look at as typical order as far as age. And it's really sad. We see how much our youth have to gun, how they are really not willing to work out any differences that they have with other youth. That's always seems like now that's their first option to handle any issue that they have is everyone has a gun now and they're ready to use it. Really sad to see them dying and going to jail at such a
Yeah. Um, the definitely true. And so one of the things I want to ask you young ladies is to, and we don't have to talk about specific cases, but if you would share as far as your prep room experience, like with with the audience, like the preparation part, like what you see, what you have to prepare. Talk about that process so that people have an idea of what that's like, what goes into the preparation in order for the family to have what we would call that final viewing, what all goes into that.
Well, of course, each case is different, and so when it comes to homicides, those injuries can be simple or major, and most of the time they can be pretty major. Because again, I feel like they act out what they see in movies and stuff. So you have someone with like a MR rifle or something, and they just what we say empty the clip, on a person. So that means they've shot someone multiple times, and so you have this decedent who has come in mutilated from gunshot wounds, and they've been under the care of the medical examiner for that determination of cause of death. So they've undergone an autopsy. So you have uh, those repairs also to take care of from that examination. And a few times or quite often it can be a challenge to bring a person to a visible appearance if they've been shot in the head or if they've been shot in the face. multiple times, it can really damage, the bone structure of a person's face and cause them to look abnormal. So it does take time and it takes great skill to be able to shift those bone fragments or replace bone fragments with materials to help reconstruct that person's facial features so that they do look pleasant and they look natural, for the family to have an open casket during their service.
Um, Miss Dana, if you would speak to like what it's been like for you all, as far as like working with the families, like what that's like, the emotional side of things, and what you all have seen and experienced, what's unfortunately a regular, consistent basis.
Right. Now, working with the family is definitely, I guess, a different dimension of it. Because, in the back, we in our zone and we're more, in our element as far as, just focusing on what our actual job is. But working with the family it's always interesting to me because each family, just like each case we embalm, each family is different as well, with how they handle the situations. Unfortunately, some of the families we deal with have been through that same situation for. And of course, you have other families where this is their first time experiencing this. Like the closest they've gotten to it was, watching the news or hearing about a friend or a distant relative, that they have lost to gun violence. So, a lot of times you're dealing directly with the parents that have lost, their child, or the grandparents or guardians, their child that they have most likely tried to pour into and try to deter them from situations like those. And, it's just really, really sad to see the emotional toll that it takes on them. And so, of course, just as a funeral director, I definitely try to approach the situation, with my so that I can be there for them, because a lot of times we turn into a counselor and we turn into just that immediate support system that they need, because if the entire family is, distraught from this loss, then they can't necessarily turn to their relatives for that strong support system that they need. So a lot of times I end up talking to people all times of day and night, and a lot of times they just want to vent. And, I guess, my opportunity there for them. I want them to know not only do we appreciate them supporting our business, but at the end of the day, it's about more than business. We're here for our people, we're here for our community in every way possible. So, of course, it does help. Sometimes, like you said, venting to my mom, just about, just experiences, just to, kind of decompress and get it off your chest, just talking about some of the experiences, because it can get crazy. It's not always just peaceful and quiet and crying. Like, it can get really intense sometimes. So but still staying in control of my emotions, staying on top of all situations, and also you're safe, because a lot of times the individual involved in things that we're not completely aware of. So, sometimes there are undercover officers at the funerals, and there are security, individuals at the funeral. And so we have to make sure that we stay safe even after, this young individual's life has been lost. They still in the same mindset. They don't see the loss. They're still worried about maybe some type of beef they have or whatever. So we still have to be safe and our families to.
And so what are some of the other ways that you all make sure that you're poured into, that you are in the best position mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to be able to serve on a day in and day out basis? What are some of the things that you implement in your lives to make sure that you're healthy on all fronts?
For me personally, I implement a lot of prayer. I pray, cry if I need to, in my own personal space. Sometimes I cry in front of people, but prayer and just trying to relax, or try to watch a good movie or something to kind of take your mind off the day, or talk to friends, just share feelings with each other, and take on whatever it is they're dealing with, listen to their problems, to kind of like subside what I have, put that on the back burner, and it eventually, subsides as I'm listening and helping them through their moments. But basically, well, mostly prayer for me, yeah, going to church and just playing good gospel music, and just doing things to uplift my spirit. I hang out in Mason a lot. It's a good atmosphere. So.
And I know you all have done some mentoring out in the community. And what are some of the messages that you're sharing with the youth when you go out to speak? And then what is some of the issues that you see are really pulling them away from walking paths that are going to be positive, as opposed to, walking those paths that are going to send them down to either jail or life altering, or eventually having to show up on our doorsteps.
I see peer pressure as a big factor because, of course, youth around us, they are so nice and mannerable and just well behaved. And but once we get to know them, like, we kind of get a chance to see like how they interact with other individuals age, and just how like present a certain, can basically interfere with who they really are or who they even really want to be. And just listening to them, even if they like take a phone call where they're around us, from how they're acting with us to the difference like of how they talking on that telephone call. So it's definitely a lot of who they are around, and possibly their living environments that are a big factor in the type of life they lead. And having that, a lot of them have lack of influence from older individuals that could really sway and determine, the decisions that they make. So if they're hanging around the wrong individuals that may be in their same age group, then of course they're just going to go with the flow with that because that's who they're around all the time. And even though they know that there are other options, still a lot of times wrong ones because they're not thinking decisions all the way through.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the peer pressure, the poor association pulls so many of our babies in the wrong direction. And one of the things that I share with them as well is that some of them may not get a second chance to make a better decision. But also to, be okay with being your unique self, like
Exactly.
like being authentic.
Yeah.
Like there is uh like value, like true value, your true worth is being, who you were created to be. But so many of them, by the time they get on that path to negativity, it's hard to pull them because they see their identity in somebody else, and they haven't been poured into enough. And a lot of them are not around enough to even figure out what their purpose is, or to identify. I know one of the things, and I share this with the kids as well in school. I know kids thought I was weird in school because I wanted to be a mortician, and I would keep. I played sports all through high school and even in college, and I would keep the obituary notices on up under my chair on the bench when I played basketball. And I used to tell my coach, I said, Coach, I'm gonna own a funeral home one day. She's like, Pam, I think that's a great idea. And I said, when kids talk about you, I never really listened to and paid attention to what the kids were saying, because what I did was I paid attention to the actions, like what they were doing and where it was leading them. And so some of the kids that I went to high school with, that had some comments, had whatever they wanted to say. But then when you turn around, it's like the strength that was being developed at that age, they didn't know that they'll be sitting across the table from me, having to be that strength for them, during the loss of a loved one, somebody young. And some of the individuals that I went to high school with, they're no longer with us, and God rest their souls. But seeing those transitions and sharing with kids that even though things may not look as positive now, that it gets better, as time goes on. And there are going to be some things in life that you can't control, but you can control how you show up every day. And, I tell them, how many times we've gone out to scenes and, you get kids and, they've been friends for a while, but they just want to hang out. And how many kids we've lost just due to a ride to the store. They good kids, and they get caught up in somebody else's mess. And now you got a mom or dad trying to, they got to bury a kid, at 12 and 13 years old
Right.
because they just want, and knowing that these kids are the people that you're hanging out with, that they're doing things that's not so glamorous, but we get so caught in the moment that we don't even think about the future. And it's heartbreaking, what we see. And so one of the things that you all do as well, that you all been doing for a while, and I want you to talk about, that I think is awesome, is that you have a mortuary camp. And I know for me, when I was coming up and wanted to get into mortuary science, like there was like nobody would give an opportunity to kind of get a chance to see what it's like, to see if the thoughts that I had in my head would actually be the reality. And so you are giving kids or people that's interested in that field an actual look inside of what it's like. And so I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I think that's a phenomenal opportunity for kids that's coming up. And I think it's a good opportunity for kids that may be, on some of those paths to get a chance to see the amount of integrity that goes into being a mortician and the amount of skill that you can develop and that you can grow as far as like doing the prep work, and you get a chance to see, but it also gives them a different value on life. So I want y'all to talk about your mortuary camp, when you started it, and the mission and the purpose, and the future of your camp.
So the camp is called the Funeral Services Education Camp. We we launched the first one in summer of 2019, and it's geared or open to 13 to 18-year-old individuals who are interested in funeral services or any professions in what we call death care. So they're getting hands-on, behind-the-scenes training and experience, and they're meeting professionals who are working in these professions within the funeral home, the medical examiner's office, homicide investigation, cemetery, cremation, tissue and organ donation. So just a plethora of professions that engage with funeral homes in order to care for a decedent, or to carry them through those processes to burial. And so it's been very successful. We have anywhere from about 8 to 12 camp attendees each year, and we do hold it every summer. It's something positive and educational for them to be engaged in during the summer, because a lot of deaths happen also during the summer with youth and young adults. And so it's a relief to the parents because they're at work or doing whatever they're doing, and they know that their children are well taken care of and they're doing something they love and something they're really interested in. And it also, like you said, it helps them to see if it's what they really want to do later in life. So it's a great opportunity for everyone who joins in.
I'm excited about it. I definitely think it's something that's different for kids, but it also gives you a different type of exposure.
Right.
And if you would like speak to, because I know sometimes, and I've shared with you ladies, uh, a lot of times when I go out to speak, one of the things that I get from some of the participants, especially some of my older people, is that when they were younger, they had an interest in mortuary science, but they were either deterred by parents or family members, friends. But talk a little bit about like the age, like what people say, maybe they're too young to be exposed to that, and how you all feel about that. I know I have a 12-year-old son, and he is very familiar with the work that I do. He's been, with me in funeral home settings. And so he knows, I don't keep anything from him. And we talk about things in depth so he has a good understanding about what it is that I do and the reason that I do it. So if you all would, share a little bit about like the age and, how, kids are not too young,
Right.
to experience certain things when it's in a positive setting.
Right. Well, I have a 10-year-old going on 30, but she has been exposed to funeral service since she was born. And so just seeing her grow up around it, I think that there is no such thing as a child being too young. Because a lot of times we've run into older individuals that were told a lot of misinformation. And so they have somewhat of a distorted view of funeral service. You have a lot scared what we do. And just having my child around it, like I say, in a positive light, like just being able to be open and honest with her about what death really all funerals entails. She has been able to grieve the close relatives healthier manner because she already had a good understanding of death and dying just by coming to work on occasions, me being honest with her about that death is final. And I think a lot of the youth don't understand that death is final. Like there is no coming back, and you might be that particular individual that doesn't, because everyone doesn't. But I definitely think that there's no such thing as too young. I think the younger the better, because that allows them to grow and to form a healthier opinion about death and about funeral service, so that they won't be, oh, I'm scared of a funeral home, when they get to be an adult, when they really should be scared to walk out of the funeral home, not to walk in it. Because the ones that are alive are going to be the ones that can do you, anyone that's, but I definitely see with my own child that it has been a positive experience. And she like help with little here and there, but of course she hasn't got into anything until she has to definitely older before we go to that level. But just seeing her and hearing the questions that she asks, and her curiosity, and being honest and not telling her that she's too young, like letting her know that this is part of life. And unfortunately we have to see a lot of, but on the, we get to help a lot of families what may just normally happen.
Absolutely. And so I've got another question for you all. If you could give advice to our youth today, like what's the one biggest nugget that you think will be beneficial for them? If this was the last time that they'd be able to sit in front of us, for us to pour into them with the state that we see them in right now, what would it be, and what would you say to the families that you feel like will make a difference in transforming their decision making, so that one, they could be around to recognize what their potential is and that they can live it out?
I would say, um, don't be afraid to stand out. It's best to stand out, separate yourself from what others are doing or are accepting as the norm. And if you have a passion, follow it and do things that are legal and upright so that you can live a peaceful life. You don't want to go through life looking over your shoulder or worrying about what's going to happen next. And even as upright citizens, you could fall victim to crimes, but you know that you're not going to be just caught up in isolated incidents that we see on a regular basis. So I would tell them to focus on what their passion is. Choose something positive to do in life so that you can live a long life, a healthy life. And to those families, cultivate those things in your children. Spend time with them, because if you don't, someone else will, and it's not necessarily going to be a positive, influence. So you can't let social media raise your children, or you can't let them feed into it too much, throughout their days. Actually spend time as a family and communicate, talk about feelings and talk about what it is that you desire to do, and figure out what you need to do to achieve those goals that you have.
Well, I would say that education. I think that a lot of our youth are not putting enough emphasis on how important getting their education is. Of course, along the way, we run into a lot of youth that, have possibly dropped out of school, or, they're not really attending school regularly. And I think that a lot of times enough emphasis is not put on them as to how important getting their education is, and how that really sets a positive foundation for their future. And also setting goals. A lot of the youth, I feel like they wake up every day and they don't necessarily have a purpose set in their life. Like they don't have anything that they're necessarily working towards. So like I think that's why it's important around the youth that are trying to pour into them and trying to ask them, what are your dreams? What are your aspirations? Because a lot of times they'll tell us they don't know, because they've never even think about it as tomorrow. They haven't been pushed to think about their future. So a lot of them, a lot of times think that they don't necessarily have a future or have a purpose here. So they kind of live, might be their last. I think setting goals and putting an emphasis on education, it could be a big deterrent. Just, when you're trying to ask every day, I think if you just buckle down and get that foundation that's needed, it will definitely redirect a lot of their things that are definitely not up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I like for parents to know that even if it's something that you're not familiar with or something that you're not comfortable with, there's so many resources and there's so many things that's available to you. And all you have to do is get your kids in front of it. I tell people, my son's name is Jacob. And Jacob and I typically do a trip where it's just me and him, at least every other year. And we went to St. Louis when he was 5. And St. Louis is the chess capital of the US. I found that out a few years later. And so the hotel that we stayed at, they had these big old tables that had the chess boards, and you had all these young boys, and they were there and they were playing chess. I had heard of chess, but not in depth. And at that point, he had only been playing Connect Four. He was beating up on all the older people in our family, mom included. And so, but he took an interest in it. And so when we got back to Memphis, I put him in a elite chess class, and he is an avid chess player now. He has been playing. Now, I still to this day don't know how to play chess. I'm going to start learning how to play chess, but he's at the chess club several days a week. He would be at the chess club every day if he could. And so I make it a point that even though it's not something that I'm comfortable with yet or that I know a lot about, I'm putting him in a position so that he can, take that goal and that dream and that passion and that desire to further that skill. And it's amazing to be able to see him go in. And my husband knows how to play a little bit. So Jacob is whooping him like every week. He's got like 10 chess boards. He won the Scholastic tournament at the Memphis Chess Club as an individual in the school tournament. He had enough points to win by himself. But had I not been paying attention to saw his interest in it and actually took actions to do something about it, who knows? And chess is a game that not only builds critical thinking skills, but it like educationally can help in so many different areas. And so I love to sit and watch him just play and think and strategize. And he's not just playing like kids his age; he's playing grown men. And that's another thing for our young ladies. They're trying to get more ladies involved in chess. So parents, if you have your kid is showing an interest in something, expose them to it and put them in front of it, especially if they ask. Because Jacob will ask to do stuff. He asked to play basketball. I bought him a basketball goal for Christmas. He played on it a couple of times. And when he asked me again about putting him in basketball at school, I was like, no, because you're not gonna play basketball. But the chess, he wanted to play it. And so we're making sure that he has a path that he can travel that's going to take him as high as he can go where the chess is concerned. So I always tell parents, like, put your kids in something that's different outside of the environment that they're in. And like you said, Miss Dana, like setting those goals, and fostering those things in them. Because I think sometimes a lot of our parents, that's something that they were never exposed to. You know, some of their goals and dreams, you know, may have got torn down. You know, who knows what was and what was important to them, you know, in their youth. And so they're just recycling that into the kids. But I want all of our parents to know that there is so much potential out here, and there is so much, you know, advantages, so many more advantages that our kids have, but it's up to us as parents to navigate the safe spaces and roads for them to travel to get there. And so, ladies, I appreciate you all so much for what you're doing. Definitely continue to do it at the level that you're doing at. I'm excited about the upcoming summer camp that you got. I've got the information down. Your Facebook is Afterlife Mortuary Services. There's also the phone number down for any of y'all that want to reach out to Madeline and Dana about the upcoming summer camp, or to bring them in if you need somebody to come out and speak to your youth, to give them a reality of what really goes on in the mortuary service. We're not in the business to scare people, but we do make sure that we provide the realest information that we can, because we definitely want to see our youth lives transform into something positive. Because if we keep losing youth at the rate that we're doing, then the ones that's supposed to come behind us to carry that torch, is going to be not many more to carry. And so I appreciate the time that you all have spent with me today on the autopsy of unwise choices. And we'll definitely come back and do it again, especially hopefully during the summertime when you're all doing the camp. And maybe we can get some of the kids on their parents' permission, you know, where they can share some of their experiences of why they're interested and see those young minds grow. So thank you again, ladies. I enjoyed having you on the show, and we'll definitely do it again.
Thank you for
having us.